Hey, how's it going? So, I got a homework assignment in trauma therapy to go over and write a list of the things that I am afraid of and the things that I'm avoiding. I wanted to film my experience doing this so that way you could at least get some idea of really what my raw emotion was when I was writing this list, even for myself to reflect on. And I wanted to get vulnerable and read this list so that way I can encourage others to do the same. The whole reason I was given this homework assignment was because I have a couple of things that I'm noticeably avoiding. Namely, I over and over again avoid deep cleaning tasks such as doing the dishes. And I noticed that the better my mood and the more stable I feel and everything, the more likely I am to do them. But I feel like there's something much deeper there. My therapist thinks that there's something much deeper there. So he challenged me to make a list of things that are I'm afraid of and things that I'm avoiding. And it was way harder than I thought to come up with a list. And I think in part it has to do with my life experience and how far I've come working through a lot of my trauma, a lot of my experiences, how I've really learned to adapt. I've obviously matured, started to radically accept things, made peace with a lot of things, find noticeable amounts of happiness. I really spend an enormous amount of time doing self-care and making sure that I'm taking care of myself to the best of my ability so I can be my best self for not just myself but for others. And I guess it was challenging because I have done the work and I continue to do the work, and I still have a lot more work to go for sure. I don't think that anyone ever can truly finish working on themselves. That's just my personal opinion. But for me especially, I know I have a lot to work on. But I think what this made me realize is I was sort of like minimizing how far I have come and not really processing how much I've just gotten through. And I sort of was dramatizing in my head how much really I hadn't, I guess, figured out or healed. I think that especially as someone who started transitioning later in my life, I find that I have a really hard time speaking up, feeling like I deserve to be heard, that my feelings are valid, and I just sort of had to put things in a box or totally isolate myself, or I would even go into my own fight or flight mode and literally dissociate. So I guess what I'm trying to say is this is really an eye-opening homework assignment for me and experience. I think that I'm only at the beginning of really writing these out, and I think there was a lot of time where my fears and my worries were told that they were just dramatic or not legitimate or that I shouldn't be having them. And of course now, living as male, there's the whole other flip side of it, right? The social expectations of no crying and you don't feel anything and all this stuff. And I'm an empath, and just with my whole life journey and what my 3 pillars of what makes me tick are and just who I am as a person, it doesn't align. So anyway, I guess what wasn't so surprising to me was that it was much easier for me to write the what I'm afraid of list. And I definitely think that I could be adding to both of these lists, but literally the what I'm afraid of list is at least 2 to 3 times the length of the avoiding list. I think I have a lot more to think about. Of course, I left this to be a task sort of last minute, thinking I wanted to have a really clear head going into this, and that, it was just gonna pour out of me, and that's just not at all true. So, yeah, and the other thing is that nothing surprised me. So all of the things I've written about that I've that I'm afraid of and that I'm avoiding. These are things that I think about all the time. Avoidances that I'm totally aware of on some level, fears that I've either radically accepted because they're, normalized, or I've at least told myself that this is something that's totally okay, that's valid. And on top of that, I think these are things that I think I have a lot of healing to do around and a lot of exploring. So without further ado, I'm done babbling. I have 24 what I am afraid ofs and only 8 what I am avoiding. I even had to cross one out because I realized that I wrote the exact same thing at the line above. Basically, I just phrased it differently. For some reason in the moment it felt different, but whatever. So, what am I afraid of? Dying, being sick, getting sicker, losing loved ones and pets, people I care for dying, not being able to pay bills, becoming homeless, not being successful in business, not being authentically happy, some truths, flying, not being lovable, not falling in love again, not being able to have kids, that I'm a bad person, that I become the type of man I hate, I disappoint my parents, hurting those I love, not being able to care for cats, not being able to travel, no one shows up for me, dying alone, my surgeries not happening, surgery complications, when driving I get in a car accident, not forgiving my grandmother. And on my what am I avoiding list, I have dishes, deep cleaning tasks, dating, diving deeper into sexual trauma, telling Lorna and Nikki I'm trans, forgiving my grandmother, finishing organizing the apartment, and putting my song and poetry books together. So I'm sure that there's even a longer list. I am very confident that many of you have similar fears. I think that something that this did, which I already knew but certainly could always, have a reminder on, is that a lot of the fears that we all have, they really connect us as human beings. We're often afraid of the same things. We all want to be healthy. We all want everyone we care about and love to be healthy. We all want to be loved and appreciated. We all want to be successful in whatever it is we're good at, find our purpose in this, that, and the other. These aren't exactly super individual things. And I think, obviously, the more specific, if I were to get, I would probably see more differences from anyone else. But the reality is that a lot of our fears are linked, and it should be something that brings us together and not divides us. And the same thing with avoidances. It should be what pulls us together and helps us pull each other up and figure out, really, as a society, where there are gaps of improvement and where we can improve within ourselves. So tomorrow is therapy. I'm going to bring this list, and it's going to be interesting to see what we find and dive into. But I will keep you posted if there's anything really worth sharing. And I, like I said, I really advise for you to do this for yourself, even if it's not something that you do openly, but just something by yourself. Even if you want to toss out papers, burn it, whatever you want to do, type up the list, vocalize it, do it in some form, as long as you can make sure that you can hear it or read it back or whatever, just to be able to process, and hopefully it helps. So until the next video, I'll see you.